Sarissa Thrower is a strategic communications and reputation management expert with 20 years of public relations, media training, image reputation management, and executive leadership experience. She describes herself as a media and content obsessive and proud Angelino, and in her spare time, she enjoys live events, urban exploration, casual observation, sparkling wine, and the internet. Ladies, gentlemen, theys, them, nims, and zims, buckle up for this conversation that goes all over the place. But really, we focus in talking about being a Black woman at work. I'm super excited to have this conversation because I have been a Black girl in many spaces where I was the only Black girl. So I'm excited to talk about being a Black lady, being a Black woman, being Black ladies in general, but also specifically in the workplace. So I always like to start off these pods with who are you? I'll read your cute fancy bio, but I think who are you might change daily because I know sometimes I'm like, who am I today? A bitch in a bed.
Yeah.
So so I will ask you, who are you?
It's such a big question, honestly. And to your point, I think the answer does change daily for me as well. I guess in the context of this conversation, I am a Black woman who is frequently in spaces where she is the only one like herself. And I am also, a woman of many interests, a woman of many talents, um, probably an internet addict a little bit. What else? A Scorpio. I'm left-handed. I'm many things.
I love that. And again, a lot of these questions I ask is truly because I'm nosy. And I sometimes forget things and
Yeah,
perspective. We all have
same.
different perspectives of things. So,
Yeah.
how did we meet? How do you remember us meeting?
So I used to work at Instagram.
It's true.
It is actually a fact. And when I was working there, I was responsible for a lot of the external communications initiatives, especially as it relates to thought leaders on the platform, creators, influencers, again, internet people. Sometimes, my dad used to tell me when I was young that all the time I spent on the internet was going to rot my brain. It was a waste of time, and I was like, you were wrong, because it's basically how I pay for a roof over my head. Anyway, even before I worked at Instagram, about 500 years ago, I met an individual named Dr. John Paul, and we'd been looking for a way to collaborate for some time, and the opportunity came up. This was, I think, October of 2019. I hope I have that year right. And I basically hosted a
Yeah.
dinner. Yeah, it's been a while. I hosted a dinner, and we kind of split the difference on the invite list. But through that invite list, you were there. You made an appearance. Several other people that I still had the pleasure of keeping in contact with made an appearance that night. And the dinner itself was mainly just meant to, frankly, serve as a restorative and healing space. Which, again, to our earlier point, this might be the theme of the conversation.
Yeah.
Create an environment where people who often find themselves being the only one in their normal respective environment. So that was the theme of the evening, but that's how you and I met. I feel like we had some good conversations that night. You shared a little bit
We were
about,
petty.
we
Yes.
were, I mean, and nothing's changed.
It's not.
Um,
It is not.
and I'm petty today. um, we, we talked about a lot of things, and it was actually, I think, a really compelling and like fulfilling experience for me. It was probably one of the things I'm most proud to have done while I worked at Instagram.
Oh, Instagram. One day y'all will get it together. Probably not. But
Well, I'm like, will they?
it's,
They won't.
I like to be Duluth sometimes. It's kind of fun. You be like,
Okay.
maybe.
Let me know how it
You're like,
works out for you. Let me
it's
know how
not.
that works
It's
out for
not.
you.
What does trauma mean to you?
Oh, okay. So you did give me these questions beforehand, and when you asked that question, I actually hadn't thought about the definition before. Like, I think we toss the word trauma around a lot.
Yeah.
especially in today's world where, everyone, if they're not in therapy, they like to pretend they are. Um, I think fundamentally, like from my personal point of view, trauma is a moment of impact. Sorry, I have a bang in my eye. A moment of impact that fundamentally changes your orientation, right? So I think we automatically associate the word trauma with something negative, and it quite often is. Let me be very clear about that.
Yeah.
But I think really it's just a friction point, and sometimes the friction point can lead you to more positive things. The thing I wrote back when you sent the questions ahead of time was I looked at the dictionary, and the dictionary definition is a deeply disturbing or distressing experience or a personal injury. And again, I would say that it's actually probably something more like a transitional experience, an experience that creates a portal that leads you to be someone different than the person that you were before you had this trauma occur. So that's what it means to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably a reflection of my own experiences with it as well.
Yeah, and I like to ask because we can read it, we can go through an Instagram slide. It's on everybody on TikTok is an educator now.
Yes, correct. Yes, an
Everyone's
expert.
been to school.
Yes, PhDs
Wow.
everywhere you go. Call me doctor. Thank you.
Might as well. Might as well. Um, and I think that people just have so many things that we just overutilize. We talk about like
Mhm.
we people use like I'm traumatized. Are you? I feel gaslit. Did they just lie
Yeah.
to you? Are they just shitty?
Do you know what that means? Do you actually know
Yeah.
what that means? Yeah, or did
I'm
you just
being
read it somewhere?
harmed. Are you being harmed? Or are you
Oh,
uncomfortable and you don't
yeah,
like it?
yeah.
And let's get into language. We'll talk
Were
about
or were
language
you
also.
wrong? Or were you wrong? Yeah.
Accountability. That's wild.
Mhm.
So for you, as I have also been black in many places, I'm currently black in one of my jobs right now. What does it mean for you to be? This is going to go all over the place. So
Yeah.
right now we are recording this in Black History Month. So what does it mean to be black at work during Black History Month?
Oh boy, you want to talk about trauma? You want to talk about trauma? You know what? And I feel like it's a fairly recent phenomenon. Like it didn't used to be that way, at least not as far as I can remember. I've been in my career for 20 years and I had jobs even before I started in my career. And of course,
Hmm.
I went to a school where I was, a handful of black kids in class, etc. And it just feels like the focus has become more and more like it's just the aperture has gotten a lot smaller in terms of like, when you learned about slavery in elementary school and all the white kids like they would turn
Look
around and
at
look at
you.
you
Yes. Still.
like
So
what do
you
you
so you're reporting me out.
like I wasn't there. You know what I mean? I'm learning about it the same way you are, bitch. Like what the fuck? Um, so I think to be black during Black History Month at work, there is an expect. You know what? Let me take another step back. I This is controversial, maybe I don't know. I actually hate ERGs. I hate employee resource groups. I have mixed opinions about DEI, and not in the way that like I don't like not mixed opinions about diversity, equity, and inclusion, like the things
Yeah.
that comprise
Yeah.
DEI, but
That's
like
how it's done.
the way that it is executed, especially in places like school, academia, workplace, etc. It very rarely, in my observation, actually leads to more diversity, more equity, and more inclusion the way that it is currently kind of put forth in our society. So I'm also like not a joiner. Like I'm not really like a club girly. I don't like group activities.
I hate group
Every
activities. I
interview I've
hate
ever had,
icebreakers. Let's be
I
honest.
don't like them.
I
I don't
don't
like them.
want to break
And
the
listen,
ice.
leave it there. It's there for
I
a
like it.
reason. Leave it
Solid.
there. I have social grace. I have I think social skills. I am literally a PR person by profession, and I've done okay. But I'm also introverted, and to me, forced social interaction is probably it's one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. To me, like when it happens and I feel it again, you want to talk about trauma. So I think a couple things. When you're experiencing conversations about race in the workplace, whether it's Black History Month or not, obviously there has to be a level, I think, of respectful interaction there because lived experience, whether or not you like agree with it or believe it happened, is what it is. So people's
Yeah.
perception is always going to inform their bias and their beliefs. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, and part of the reason I struggle with DEI is because it approaches these conversations from a monolithic point of view, right? So like your blackness, your black experience, even though we're both black women, is not going to be identical to mine because we are two different people. We're two different human beings. So I struggle with this idea that um, we should all be celebrated in the same way. We should all be acknowledged in the same way, that we're all going to have the same points of reference. Black people, we are global. We are a large population globally. And when you factor in things like immigration and travel and regionality, like Black people from the South are not the same as Black people from Oakland. They're just not, because the region is different. And the United States is a big country. It's very hard to cover for all of those things. So,
Yeah.
how do you have that conversation in an environment like a conference room,
Yeah.
realistically, and without it becoming some kind of like very high level, very glossed over, almost sort of meaningless experience? And then there's the last thing I'll say about this is that there is it's kind of a double edged sword, right? So it's weird to have the white women or white people or anyone who's not black leading these initiatives, because fundamentally they will never have a black experience because they're not black people. But when you
Yeah.
ask someone black to do it, then
Y'all
it's a
mad.
burden.
Well, I gotta do
Then it's a burden, right? It's like, just why got to be black? Like why got to be Black History Month? But like the reality is that
Yeah.
we probably should be involved, because look what happens when we're not. And I'm like, you guys don't pay me enough for this, and I'm not a joiner, and I don't want to go to the potluck because I don't know what your houses are like. So leave me out of it altogether. That's how I feel about Black History Month while being black at work.
Please don't do potlucks during Black History Month unless everybody is melanated. I'm listen, that might
Even
be
then, I don't
controversial
know.
because I'm not.
Some people have cats.
Are you in my head? Because I was like, them cat hairs have you seen on TikTok? Audacity.
I don't want it.
Audacity.
I don't know if you let animals in your kitchen. I don't know who's in your house. I'm good. Thank you. I'll bring
You
my
know
lunch.
what?
I'll
I
bring my lunch.
while you were talking, I was thinking I want to take it even further back because we found out later, like we grew up kind of close to each other.
We did.
Like,
The IE
IE, hello.
represent.
We made it, y'all. Um,
We did. We actually
but
did.
often in the IE and in
Hmm.
these schools and in these places, being black is not it is very
Oh
tricky. I
no.
will say.
Oh well. So for those of you who are
Let's
listening,
let's do this. Let's talk
and
about where we grew
yeah,
up.
and who don't know
Roots.
what the IE is. So California is a very big state. It is
Yeah,
literally as large as like half of Western Europe. I think I recently read a stat that said we are a top 10 global economy. So California is
crowded.
massive. And it's again, there's regions within regions. So you have, the Bay Area, you have Northern California, which is different than the Bay Area. You
It
have
so is.
you have the Central Coast inland. Whoop,
We
and
don't
then
even
you have the Central Coast.
don't do it.
We don't. Shout out to
No,
Bakersfield. Shout out to Bakersfield, but
they have sundown towns, okay?
they
And
still have sun downtown.
y'all, they
Absolutely,
still
absolutely.
exist.
It's intense. And then you have the Central Coast coastal. So like your San Luis Obispos. That's like,
You.
anyone ever see, what's it called? Is it Pretty Little Lies? No, Big Little Lies. They live on the Central Coast with that
They
bridge.
have points. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And then you have obviously Southern California, San Diego. For anyone who doesn't know what the Inland Empire is, it's basically your desert region. Once you leave the county of Los Angeles, which actually is very large, you enter
Yeah.
into a territory that I would not recommend for anybody. It's desert. It's a meth capital, a fentanyl capital.
See,
It's
people are like,
stressful.
what was Riverside like? And I'm like, oh, we're known for
It
meth and
used to be orange
racism.
groves, and now it's
I
racists
know.
and meth labs. It was
Yeah.
probably actually racist even when the orange groves
But
were.
the oranges were so nice.
They were,
They're
and
so
you could smell
nice.
them in the air. But
Yeah.
yes, so the first time I got called the N word, I was in the 6th grade, and I was actually coming home from school. I just gotten off the bus, and there's this little boy. I can't remember his name. I think it was like, it started with the B, Bob, Benjamin, Benny, something like that. Anyway, it was just so like out of left field. Like I was like, we'd had a disagreement. Wouldn't be the first time I had an outright argument with a white man in my life. Um, and it wouldn't be the last time. And, I was walking, basically turning the corner to get to my street. And he said, "Why don't you go back to Africa, Edward?" And I was like, "Oh my God." And I'm laughing because it was funny at the time. And
Yeah.
it's funny now because if you have parents, and again, this is not the case for every Black person, but if you have parents that imparted upon you an understanding and an awareness that you are different in the world, but it doesn't make you less than,
Mhm.
when stuff like that happens to you, I think you actually are a little bit more prepared for it. Um, I do have to say that growing up in California, even in the IE, even in the desert, my brushes with overt racism like that have been relatively few and far between.
Yeah.
California is the kind of place where we hide our racism.
We're passive.
Yeah, it's not like, ugh, Confederate flag, tacky. But it's interesting because I actually attribute a lot of my ability to navigate these spaces with the experiences I had in those environments. I don't know if you feel
Yeah.
the same way, but I almost appreciate some of the past because it sharpens your intuition, I think, and your
Yeah.
instinct as to like who's actually really trustworthy, who's full of shit, and whether or not you're well. It's a safety mechanism, basically.
I agree. I remember the first time I was called the N-word. I didn't even really realize it. We had moved to like Canyon Crest, if people know, small,
Okay. Yep.
thank you, from the east side. And I was in the front yard, like, what the fuck are we
Minding your
doing
business,
here?
living
Minding
life.
my business. And someone drove by and yelled
I
out,
drove by, not a drive-by, bitch.
a drive-by
It's not
niggery.
funny. It's actually
I
not
got
funny.
drive-by niggered. Okay. And when I tell you, I was like, what? By the time I had lifted my head,
It's not true.
my mother flew out the front door. What is that? I'm like, what? Yeah, you've
It's
never been
really
drive
not
by
funny.
niggered?
That is
It's wild. It's wild. But
uh
it's a thing, right?
it is a
Like,
thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. It's not
no,
funny.
it's fine. At this age, I'm like,
How
what?
old were you?
Um, I was in like the fifth grade. I was like
Okay, so
11.
we were around the same age. I think I was like maybe 11 because I'm in November, so I was always like a little bit behind my friends who like turned the next age of the
Yeah.
summer. So in fifth grade, I was like 9, and then I turned 10. Um, so my parents were like, "She's 4 years old. She can read. Get her ass in school." They
Oh,
don't do that.
reading.
They don't do that anymore. Now, if you're born after like August or September, you're the
Old.
oldest. You're the oldest one in your class. You're the oldest
Which
one,
is
which is
wild.
crazy. Which is it's giving like
Yeah.
what's that dude from Fast Times at Ridgemont High that's like 30 years old and a senior. That's how those kids are now. Anyway, damn. Okay.
I do think between that and then going from, because I also went to like different types of schools. So I went to like a private
Mhm.
school in elementary, and then my mom was like, I'm not doing 6 hours of homework with you every night. We're going to public school. Uh
Fair. No, completely
Shout
fair.
out to Cheryl. She said, not me. Uh, and then I went to school in the East Side, which I also think helped me to be who I am today because I was around black and Mexican kids. There
Which is
was like
helpful. Yeah.
the sprinkles of white.
Yes. Yeah, and
But
I
then
think
middle
that actually makes
school
a huge difference.
changed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. For me, it was actually the reverse. So I also went to a couple different schools. And then because my parents got divorced when I was 10. Again, I guess this is a trauma podcast, so it's fine. So I was bouncing back and forth, and my mom moved to Orange County. She moved to Garden Grove. It was really close to the Crystal Cathedral.
Yep.
But I was with my dad, and I went to school in Rialto for about a year.
Oh, you went to the Tao? Oh,
I did,
this
and that's
is
actually
why
that's
I
what
need y'all to not be fooled by this cute hair that Sarissa
just
has
because
because
I
she's
just
from the
because
hood,
I
though.
get truly
From the hood,
because
though.
my dad was a teacher and he was teaching at the school in Rialto. He was like, I'm just going to have you here because then I don't have to drive you all the way around. So for a year, I spent time in at school Rialto. This was after I got called the N word. He was like, let's get you out of here.
Season me up. Pack it up.
And actually, I got into my first schoolyard fight with, unfortunately, another Black girl because she kept saying I like this boy that I did not like. So I definitely threw milk on her in the cafeteria, and
You haven't changed. You
I
have
wanted
not
to stir up
changed.
because I was like, here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to do
You
rumors
have
and
not changed.
speculation. We do not do rumors and speculation. Not on my watch. Anyway, that's why I was only there for a year because
Because you was tussling. Your dad was like, we
because
can't do
I
this.
I act like everywhere I go is a prison yard.
again, don't be fooled by the cute presentation of this human, y'all. She
Um,
tussles.
but, but
That's
go
wild.
ahead. Yeah,
I
no, so,
think
like, middle school is, like, kind of in between, and then high school, I went when I was back in Corona, and it was a little bit more diverse. There was a lot of Latinos there was a lot of Asians, Filipinos, a smattering of white children. Still not enough black people for my liking and taste, but
sure.
that's where I met the homies, like the long-term black homies, et cetera, because it was just a bigger environment. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, I think middle school also was, like, I felt like I went through, like, these culture shocks because
Mm.
while all of this was
In what way?
happening.
Say more about that. That's interesting.
Yes, yes. So I also was in the hood a little bit, in,
Okay.
San Bernardino,
Oh,
in, off, like, Highland and Del Rosa.
oh,
Oh, yeah, no. Don't be
okay.
foolish.
Okay. All right. Listen.
Because my aunt lived there and because I was raised by my grandparents,
Yep.
often one of them would be at work, so my
Yep.
aunts were also, like, helping to raise me, and my aunt
Yeah.
was like, "Well, I'm not driving back and forth, come on out here."
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was tussling because you learn a lot. But the culture shock for me was, like, going from being around all these black and brown kids and, like, understanding each other and having this, and then I
Mhm.
went to Matthew Gage Middle School,
Ooh.
which was yeah, I named them, which was very white, and
Yeah.
so it was like this whole new smattering, and it was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
It was like I look different, I talk different, and
Was that your
a lot
that
of
was your first time in that kind of environment?
for the most part, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And a lot of these kids, like, grew up with, like, money and
Yeah.
thought they were better. Like, I
Listen,
always say
there quite as it's kept, there are some nice
we have
areas
coins.
in the
We have
IEs.
coins.
Yes.
I always I always look at, like, even going into high school, like, we were the bootleg Laguna Beach, if y'all
Mhm.
know, throw it back one time.
Mhm.
Because the kids did have money and they were like,
Mhm.
I some of them knew them, right? So they're like,
Yep.
"We're similar." I'm like, "Girl, we are in Riverside." We got dragged on that OC show. They hated Riverside.
Shit is a when he was like,
Every
I'm
episode.
from Chino, bitch," and I was like, first of all, Chino is not even that bad.
It's kind of that Chino Hills, lovely.
Like,
Like,
they definitely have street sweeping there. You kidding?
yeah.
Please.
But, like, the
Be
kids
fucking for
would
real.
say things and, like, not realize, and this will always stick with me.
Oh,
I was in middle
no.
school, and I used to lie on my mama. I used to be like, "Oh, Cheryl said I couldn't go." I told her later, I was like, "Girl, I used to lie and say you wouldn't let me go. They probably thought you were mean." She was like, "What?" And so these girls were like, "Oh my god." I remember it so clearly. We were at PE. We had, like, went and changed our clothes, which that's a whole nother conversation. PE
Yep.
locker room's wild.
Mhm.
Um, but we changed clothes and like, "Oh my god, we're having a party this weekend. We uninvited people to invite you, so we hope you can come." And I'm
That is
looking at
that
them.
is so Caucasian.
You
We
first off,
excluded others so that you could be included. How about we
but you
not?
uninvited them. So I
Let's
was a
not do
second thought.
that. I don't want that. No, thank you.
I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I don't think my mom's gonna let me go." In my mind, I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" As a 12-year-old, I'm
I'm
like, "Are you
actually really
fucking with
impressed that you
me?"
had that instinct because at that age, all you wanna do is belong. All you want is a friend, and you were like,
Not
"I'm
me.
good. Thank you."
No. I
I
didn't
admire
trust him.
that. I admire that.
Something didn't feel
Yeah.
right.
Well, people some black girls go to sleepovers and end up getting it's giving crime scene investigation.
Listen, this is going a little left, but it makes sense because it's us. Do you remember that black mom that went to that sleepover
Yep.
and
That's what I
never
was
came
yep.
home?
Yep.
Reference point the rest of my life.
Yep. Yep.
Because everyone said, "We don't know what happened to it. There's 10 of y'all in this house,
And she's the
and
only
you don't
black
know how
one.
that fell off a balcony. Go to hell."
Yep. 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 Yeah, it's yeah, 100%. Okay, interesting.
We tussled here. But the point of all of this, we're going to come back. The point of this was like, there's a lot of things that we go through before we even get into the workplace
Uh-huh.
that we have to navigate and get to. And then we get to the workplace. So what is it like being a black woman in the workplace? Or what has it been like for you?
Hmm. When I think about it in the plainest terms, it's again, sometimes there's benefit to it, and anyone who has existed in predominantly white spaces in corporate America specifically knows what will know what I'm talking about. And there's obviously a lot of downsides to it. So it also depends on your point of view. I am the kind of person
Yeah.
who likes to keep my information close to the vest. The less you know, the better. A lot of things about me and my business and my life are need to know.
Okay.
And unless you ask specifically the right combination of questions in the correct order, because you
Yes,
didn't
I
ask. So I
like
wasn't, it's not a lie if you didn't ask the right question, basically. That's how I approach a lot of things. But the flip side of that, and I say that to say, well, I don't, honestly, I don't really care. White people don't have culture. white, white people have no sense of community. Community confuses them. They look down on it. It literally explains all of white history, colonialism, imperialism, and their general attitude towards things like social services. And even when they get some semblance of a community structure like socialism or communism, public services, et cetera, from a political standpoint, it's not endemic to them because it's
Mhm,
not what they're taught. I think,
mhm,
especially when you talk about how whiteness has proliferated and spread and changed over the last, like, probably, I don't know, couple centuries or so. Like, there are white people who are white now that didn't used to be as white as they currently are. So when you think about it from that perspective, everything, all their reference points come from somewhere else, which is why we see so much cultural appropriation, plainly, so much adoption of other things, because they're human beings. I think they crave it. You can cut that out.
I don't know, I can't even open my eyes. They're closed. I'm back.
They're human. White people are human beings, and they human beings crave connection. We are social. We are social animals. So when you think about it from that standpoint, there's, and again, there's still a lot of privilege and dominance there, but white people have been robbed of their culture. They've been robbed of their native identities over decades, over time, right? And sort of
Mhm. It's been
required,
watered down.
it's been watered down, and they have been required to be monolithic and hyper individualistic. So they're all the same. Like, whiteness is one big, you know, indescribable blob, but also it's highly individual. So if you're failing, if you're by yourself, if things are not going well for you, you don't have anyone else to blame. Like, that to me, that is white culture in a nutshell. Cultures of color, brown and black, and diasporic and ethnic culture, on the other hand, is very communal, because that's literally how people are. That's literally native
How we
to
survive.
our biology. Correct. We were not always apex predators. We had to invent weapons for that. We had to invent tools for that. The saber-tooth tiger was going to eat us otherwise. So sometimes when I'm in these spaces, just to kind of circle it back, when I'm in these spaces, it's helpful to remember that most of the people in the spaces that I'm in do not have the points of reference, because they were literally taught to orient themselves differently to the world. And again, your perspective may not be correct, but if it's true to you, then there's really no arguing that down. In order to get you to understand where I'm coming from, I literally have to change your perspective. A lot of the trauma that I've experienced in the workplace comes from people projecting their own lived experiences onto my lived experience. And I think that's where a lot of the breakage occurs. I think this particularly crops up with white women in particular, because, and it's down to like language and everything
Yeah.
too. The way that we speak and reference things and what things mean, bad meaning good. We like they don't. You have to explain things to them a lot more, and the older I get, the less interested I am in explaining, the less I want to do it, the less
Mhm.
helpful I think it is. And the flip side of that is that, like, when you're in spaces with other black folks, it could go probably one of like a couple ways. You have the people that are like, we see each other, we look out for each
Mhm.
other. I'm hard
Mhm.
pressed to snitch on another black woman in the workplace because there's so few of us. We just don't. Even if I could see you do a lot of things, and if someone asked me about it, I don't. Who's
I don't
that?
know nothing.
I don't know her. I've never seen
That's
her. They're like, is this
wild.
is this
What?
a is this a photo of you and her together? What? Who
Mm-mm.
I? allegedly.
I'm just gonna look confused.
What?
You know what? That AI is wild, baby. They out here just deep faking. Never met
but
her.
but the other side is that it gives crabs in a barrel, right? So when you have people who get ascribed to whiteness, who want to be, it's giving Uncle Ruckus, it's giving being the best black in the room, and like
Yes.
me, I'm normal. I'm interested in being myself. I'm
Yeah.
fine with my blackness. I don't believe my blackness has to be compared to other kinds of blackness. I actually am black. I don't have to prove my blackness. I'm literally black. You may not have seen my specific type of black before because I am one of one, but that doesn't make me any
Yeah.
less black.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times, especially growing up, with the way I sound and the way you want to be white, and you do all these things that are
Let's get into this because the
uh,
microaggressions,
yeah,
they're
intrinsically tied
loud.
to white culture, which makes you more palatable and acceptable to white people. We know about code switching, we know about these things, but I come by those things honestly. And I learned pretty early on that it was privilege basically that allowed me. My parents are educated. School was never it was never a question whether I was going to go to school. I was taught how to maneuver in these spaces to a certain extent. My parents are immigrants, so they only knew so much because they had never really operated in American spaces like that. But I had the benefit of that, but it didn't, to me, detract from my blackness. Just because I know how to like sort of show up in different spaces doesn't make me any less black. It's just my specific type of black. So I guess the cherry on top of this conversation, or this part of the conversation around being black at work, is that again, you mentioned microaggressions, you mentioned sort of having to shape yourself and adapt and mold to being in these spaces that are again not welcoming to you, where there's not a lot of people like you. And I think there's a turning point when you realize that no matter what you do, no matter how you bend your back to kind of fit in,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter because it was never a space that was designed for you. It's barely designed for white people. Like even a lot of them, again, the definition of whiteness has shifted, right? So the
Mm,
closer you are, it's a spectrum. So the closer you are to whiteness, even if you're not actually a white person, the better you'll do. But the only people who are actually white in the way that we think about it are straight white,
men.
usually Protestant men of a certain
Mm-hmm.
age, because even young people aren't as white as old white men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. Like I'm even thinking about like again some of the spaces I'm in now. It's like the amount of sometimes mental gymnastics you
Mm-hmm.
have to go through to
Mm-hmm.
exist in spaces and like just to exist and like
Yeah.
show up to do the job they paid you for.
Yep.
Like I have gone into
Yep.
places and been like, "Do I need to get less nice?" And they go, "Oh no 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 no."
Yeah.
But why did we have to get there? Because why
Yeah.
didn't I have the same respect
Yep.
as everyone else? Because
From
I've
the
been
from
studying
the get.
psychology since I was 16, baby. Like she's not
Yeah.
new to this.
Yeah.
But why do I have to get to that level? But then you become the angry black lady.
Uh,
Or well, I don't want to upset you. I'm not upset. I can't get upset.
the so and this is nothing new. And I think, white women get told this too, but like the most common piece of feedback that I've gotten as to why I wasn't being promoted or why someone was having an issue was my tone. And I think some of it has to do with my blackness, but a lot of it is just me being a plain spoken person. Like if I have something to say, I'm going to say it to you
I'm not
directly.
going to sugarcoat it. I don't want to waste time. Why
Words
add
mean
extra
things.
words?
Words
Why are we
mean
feeling
things.
it?
And like again, one aspect of whiteness is this idea of like comfortability, right? Of
Mm,
framing your language in a way that ensures that the other
soft.
person does not take offense to it. I rarely raise my voice. I'm not someone that raises my voice. I don't have to. You heard what
I think it's
I said.
worse.
You heard what I said. So it's always been interesting to me when I've gotten feedback about my tone or my delivery sometimes comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, can I be a little spicy?
Yes.
Sure, I'll give you that. But at the same time, I can take as good as I can give.
Sure.
So if you ever have feedback for me as a colleague, as a friend, as an individual, I'm going to take it into consideration and change because of it, because that's something that I'm committed and dedicated to doing. And I really only want to be in spaces going forward where that is the table stakes basically. Like it's those are places are hard to find and those people are hard to find, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm less and less interested in having to like contort myself
Yeah.
to climb some imaginary ladder that does not matter anyway, because we are at late stage capitalism and this is all going to crumble any second.
Guys, this is all made up. It's all made up.
It's fake.
None of this is
It's fake.
real. It's
Money is fake. Time
Delu.
is fake. We made
We
it
all
up.
made this up, and we
We
were just
made
like,
it
I
up.
guess
Sure. And I'm like, but we could stop anytime we wanted.
we really could.
We could stop doing this if we wanted to. If we really wanted to. Yeah.
When I think about like tone in workplaces, because I also teach like a communications class, because I do a lot.
Yeah.
But language and words are only about 7%. And so body language, right, is
Mm-hmm.
also a huge
Mm-hmm.
form of communication. And let's just keep it a
Mm.
buck. Black people are fun. Okay. We are fun. We like to have like little comments. If you get a group of black people and a good cackle, 99% of them are going to run in different directions
Yep.
and laugh and bring it
Well,
back
that's
in.
again, that's to me, that's culturality. I don't know if that's a word, but like that is something specific to Black identity.
Mhm.
And if you talk about epigenetics and the science of DNA as it relates to like ancestral understanding, there's answers for all of that. But if you don't have the history, if you don't have the ancestral history to correspond with that, then to you it's just strange. It's like, why do they do that?
Oh, every time I'm with my friend Lola, Dirty Lola, y'all check her out. People are like, "Are you guys fighting?" We're like, "What?" Well, you just was like, "Oh my god, hey bitch." Blah blah. I was like, "At what point did well, you guys were loud and what?" And every time we're like, you don't
Well,
get connected with
like,
your friends and get excited."
have you ever like, I mean, I'm sure you have attended like a luncheon or like an event with like,
It's quiet.
it's boring and nobody's laughing. People are
And the food's
like,
not good.
I'm like, you know what? I'm
It's a
leaving.
lot.
I don't have to be here. This feels like work. It's a party. This is a party. I don't want to go to networking events for fun. I don't want to. Like, why does your baby shower feel like a networking event? Stop. I hate
I
it
was like,
here.
don't
I
want to do
don't
that.
like
I
it.
don't want that.
I don't like that. Yeah, it's interesting though, because those are the things that, for me anyway, I think make blackness it's dangerous to be black. It is hard to
Yeah.
be black, but those are the things that make it so worth it, honestly. Because if you really
Mm.
sat down and thought about like, you know, the historical implications of blackness and how even now in 2024, we are still having firsts as a community in a country that is
Which is
supposed
wild.
right. It is in a country that is supposed to be free and everyone has equal opportunity, etc. I sometimes I forget how actually hard it is to be black, being called the N word in a drive by when you're literally 10
Drive by
years old.
niggering.
But you know what?
It's
It's
so
okay
wild.
because like I wouldn't trade it. Like if someone came with a magic wand and was like, I could turn you into a white woman today, I'd be like, oh, no, thank you. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you though. I appreciate
I
the
know
offer.
this struggle, but also I know like being black is so magical,
It
right?
is. It
Like
really is.
as much as people and society makes black a negative thing, even just like it's black,
Anti-blackness
it's
is so
bad.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but like we'll talk about this real quick. So I talked about this with another episode with a friend because I'm only talking to my friends right now.
Okay,
Um,
that works.
and I did shrooms during the pandemic,
Okay.
and I looked to my closet.
Microdosing? Were you out in Joshua Tree?
No, she
Okay.
was in it.
Oh, it was a full dose. Okay, got
Full
it.
dose.
Got it. Got it.
I was
Okay.
in bed with my weighted blanket, and I looked to my
Oh,
closet, and
that
it
sounds
opened,
actually kind of. Your
and it was
closet open.
with all of the black women from my family, just like walking out, like, "Hey, girl, we're so proud of you,"
Oh,
and it was like people I knew, people I didn't know. But it was so beautiful. I was like, "Oh my god, I come from these baddies? Okay."
yeah.
Like, the strength and the energy that it takes to be a Black woman in life, but also in the workplace. As I said before, it's like mental gymnastics of like, "I know I belong here, and now
Mhm.
I gotta be a bad bitch to
But prove
remind
it like
you
every day. It's
every day,
exhausting. Like,
every day."
yeah.
But then
Yeah.
you're angry or you're frustrated, and you're literally just like existing. But
Yeah.
it's also what we don't often talk about is what I talk about with like survivors, because it is traumas. We're navigating and waiting for the next foot to drop. So
A
often we're
hundred
not even
percent.
fully showing up
100%.
because we don't know.
The dimming of the light is a very real thing. I had a conversation with my therapist this week. And I've been in therapy on and off for years, and this particular therapist has seen me through many cycles, many phases of life.
Mhm.
And she's a white
Shout out to
woman.
her. Shout out to her.
Shout out to her. So we were talking this week, and I was essentially sort of ruminating on this idea of perfection and
Mm.
how, you know, specific context was that I received a check from my business and it was made out to the wrong thing. So when I tried to cash it, they were like, it doesn't match the shit on your account. Try again,
Yeah.
bitch. And I was like, I have to double check and make sure that I didn't give incorrect instructions on my invoice, et cetera. So I was like, I like making mistakes as a Black woman can be real. Again, you're in these spaces that are not meant for you. And one misstep can have you losing your job, which can lead to you losing your housing, which can lead to losing your relationship. If you got kids, your family is not being fed anymore. So, like, there are massive consequences a lot of the time for not being able to uh, maintain that facade of
Yeah.
I don't make mistakes. I have to show up in exactly the same way every single day as I sold myself
Hmm.
in order to keep up the ruse, basically. And again, that's not human. Like, we are not, no one's capable of doing that. Also, we shouldn't have to. That's also why I started just showing up. I'm like, take it or leave it. Yes, I have an attitude. And what about
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. It's really sad though, right? Like you also brought up like we've all known Black people that will also throw you under the bus to get
Oh,
closer to
100%.
whiteness. And
100%.
I've experienced that, and I always say that Black women, I would I if there was an option list, I'm like, I still want to be a Black lady,
Yeah.
because I think we are some of the most powerful. I always say we are the most duplicated and the most hated all in one
They're mad
body.
at us. They resent us.
And that is wild. Like if I see one more girl, I just got my hair done. If I see one more girl lacking melanation trying to get some cornrows, it doesn't even matter to me anymore. I just
I feel
laugh
like,
because I'll be like,
but
you
why,
gonna be
but why
bald.
can't we do it? I'm like, no one
Be
said that
bald.
you couldn't, but
Be
like,
bald. It's not for you. You're gonna have no edges. You see how your scalp is already red and it's boop, go ahead, girl, do you. Be us.
did you see? So there's this video that's been going around on TikTok, and I actually have been thinking about it a lot. It's this straight white woman. They live in New York, and she was talking about how she was. They went to this lesbian bar in New York.
We talked about this.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, and they had a straight male friend that kind of just stopped by for a drink or just to say hi or whatever. And there's obviously people are posting because the TikTok algorithm, one thing it's going to do is expose whoever's lying. You will find out. Shout out to the Chinese government for that, because I'm like, you know what? They literally have all of my information and my likeness, but I will be finding out what the tea is. Anyway, so of course there's been posts from responding from people who were there, from the woman who actually said something. And what was interesting to me about that particular incident, and I think extrapolates into so many other situations, is like, are straight men not allowed to go to lesbian bars? It's like, why are you
Why?
why do you want to be in spaces that are not designed for you? And the
Mm,
same could be said of like, oh, Black people wanting to be in these white spaces. But the reality is like, if that's the status quo, if that's the default structure, then everything outside of that lacks, frankly, fundamental opportunity, right?
yeah.
And even still, when you're looking at it again through this super narrow lens, there is a level of acclimation that has to happen in order for you to inhabit the space. But it doesn't work in the opposite direction. So they're so used to not having to, like, again, contort themselves, bend, shape, and mold to spaces that are not meant for them, that when they walk in, they're like, well, the space should always rise to meet me or sink to meet me, as the case may be. And it's like, no, I think there's a level of understanding that comes automatically with being marginalized in any way.
Everything's not
Um,
for me.
Everything is not for me. You should
Yeah.
stop
And
getting
that's
cornrows.
okay.
White girls should not have cornrows.
No, let them get individuals. Let them get some faux locks. Be out here like me, bald. You're gonna be bald though. There's the difference.
Sometimes you have to learn the lessons the hard way.
Yes. Yes. Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I
You're
think
like,
the idea, the the word that comes to me is audacity, but
mm,
really
repeated
it's
audacity.
ego.
Hmm.
I think it's a lot of ego
And
and
insecurity.
privilege.
Insecurity.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And these are still the things that we have to navigate in all parts of our lives. But like, listen, I want to keep it 100 with you. I don't want to go to work. And so I already don't want to go to this place, right? Like I love the things I get to do,
Yeah.
but do I want to go to work and have to deal with other people I don't want to
No,
talk
I
to?
would like to be
No.
independently wealthy. I want to win the lotto.
Yeah, but I don't play it. I keep saying it. Somebody
I
bless
know.
me.
I know. So-
I receive blessings and donations. I like to be sponsored. You know, just
yes.
put in the universe. Hear
Yes.
me.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? Me too. Also, as well. I would also like to be sponsored and receive donations from the universe or
Okay.
whoever. You put up my Venmo, my Cash App, link in
It's
bio.
true
Link
though.
in bio.
Like there's so much that's there every day that I'm like, I don't really want to do this. So then you make it hard for me to exist, but also
Hmm.
we are there for a reason. Just like you're there for a reason.
Yep.
We all got hired to do our jobs.
Yep.
Why do you want to make it hard for me to not do my job? And or you don't really know what you're doing because you bullshitted your way in and you try to use my skill set.
And never had to, and never, that part didn't have to work half as hard as I did to get in the same space. We're at the same table. But I started way behind the starting line just by
Mhm.
virtue of who I am.
We make less money on the dollar. We
Sure
talk about this
do.
every year.
Get promoted less frequently, less positions of power and leadership. Yep. Yep. All of
Mhm.
it.
As you
All of it.
said, this we're already having firsts this year. Like, you just looking at the award shows.
Yep.
How has these awards been around my whole life and we having first time, excuse me?
Or the second time since 1980. And I'm like, guys, we have got to stop doing that. I don't want to be the first anymore. I don't want to be the first. I don't want to be the only. I think it's embarrassing. If I'm the first, then you should shut down your whole organization because why did it take you so long? In 2020, in the year of our,
2024.
we have AI, we've got these phones, we've got all these things that make it so that we have the technology, basically is what I'm saying. Black
Yeah.
people are literally everywhere. You can find a way to steal cornrows and lips and butts and
Still
everything.
lotion.
All the lotion, all the shit that you talk
Soap.
about, all of those things, washing your
Washcloths.
legs. Yes. You find a way to take
Steal
all that.
some helpful
And
stuff.
yet it's only been two of us who won this award or got this accolade or have held this position. That black was it the president of Harvard? They got rid of her ass quick. They said, get that, you're out of here.
Drive by niggering.
Get her out of here. And they did. It took 6 months for that woman to ascend to a place that no other black woman has ever been seen and promptly get excused for plagiarism. Which,
You
by
know
the
what?
way, I'm so sorry. Sorry, this is just a
Nothing's
rant.
original anymore. Very few things are
But not
original.
just that,
Also,
but like
P.S.
you
FYI.
have the nerve. All white people in academia do is steal. The audacity. Please don't get me started. Also, she cited her sources for the record. That woman cited her sources. Y'all got me fucked up.
I mean, these are conversations that we have in the group chat.
Yep. Yeah, it's true.
How important is the Black Lady group chat?
Oh, I mean, it's a cultural institution. And before it was the group chat, it was the party line, it was, the brunch club, whatever it was before we had, the ability to do our group chats, which I guess it's been a while now since we've had that ability. Um, it's a gut check. And you need
Yeah,
multiple ones. You need the
you
ones that
do.
you need with like your work friends, your work people. You need the one-on-ones, like you have like everyone in the group chat, and then you have like a couple side ones. You need
Yeah, yeah,
those.
yeah. Split it up.
You have the party chats. You have the chats where you go if you need to feel validated and assured. You need your chats where it's like, hey, I got some bodies. People are like, tell me when I will get my shovel. Like, let's go. You need
Easy.
different kinds. And I think, like, again, when you talk about this idea of community, when you talk about this idea of belonging and cultivation from that standpoint, I do wonder if like, do white women have group chats like that? Like,
I hope so.
but I don't.
I hope
I feel
so.
like if more of them did, they wouldn't act like that. like the way that they act.
Well, it
It would
depends
be less
on how the
common.
group chat is flowing, right? Because you come in my group chat and you're like, oh my God, I'm like, girl, that's wild. Why would you do that? Right? Because you have to also be in a space that feels safe enough that you can be
Yes.
yourself,
Yeah.
where your friends can be like, girl, what the hell were
Yeah.
you thinking? Like
Yeah, you're
I'm
right.
on your side, but also that was wild. Maybe we don't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. The answer is no. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And like you need your price is way too high. You need to cut it.
Girl, what are we doing? Or
Cut it.
no, no, no. Ask for more money. Cause let me tell you what I
Correct.
heard
Yep.
Stephanie over here was getting.
Yep.
Nah, girl,
Yep.
resubmit.
But again, I think because of the nature of white supremacy culture, it is
Mhm,
hard for people who are in it, whether they're white or not, frankly, to get out of that mindset. And it's not even about, I don't even think it's about being supportive, although that is a large component. It's also
mhm,
about this idea that, you know, a rising tide lifts all ships. If you're doing well and I'm associated with you, I'm automatically doing well by proxy. Winners work with other winners, essentially.
mhm,
Winners surround themselves with other winners. And there's I'm sure there's like a mathematical term for it, but there's a law of odds. So the chances are if I'm like this and you're like this and this third person's like this in the group chat in whatever context, we're all going to be doing, you know, on average better because of our shared level essentially.
mhm,
And I don't like white supremacy culture does not speak to that. It just doesn't.
mm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Like to be able to watch from my black ass couch, um, and to be able to watch the way that other people navigate. And I think, shout out to aging. Like, I am so thankful to age. And like, I always say that, like, my mom was killed when she was 24. I get to live an extra year and see
Mm,
more than she ever did. And
mm,
I'm like, sometimes I'm talking to her, like, girl, you didn't miss nothing. These people out here wild. Okay. But I'm so thankful to be this age that I am now, to
mm.
have those experiences that I can be like, oh, I don't care. And
Yeah.
people be like, "You do care," and I'm like, "No, I don't."
No, I don't.
Do you ever find
I
people
like
that
when
try to
people
make you care?
yes, like we're both like, how are you gonna tell me and again, this lived
I don't know.
experience, how are you gonna tell me whether or not I care? You
I don't.
care. I'm like, did
I
I say
don't.
that? Was that what I
Well,
said?
you should, or well, you should care. I'm like,
No. According to
nah,
who? Says who?
nah.
No. I am very grateful to be the age that I am. Because again, tomorrow is not promised. And the things that seem really important when you're 25 or
Couldn't.
29 or 32 or 38 just become increasingly less important the older you get. The fact of the matter is, and this is my scorpionic quality coming out, life is a zero sum game. Nobody gets out.
Mm,
Zero of however many people have been born so far are making it out. Nobody's winning, basically. So again,
mm,
to go back to the earlier point we made it up. We made it all up. And I think when you are in these moments of like fervor or frenzy and you're worried about this email or this project or this person said this thing to you and it feels like the world is literally stopping on its axis, you remember that you're going to die. And is this something that you want people talking about at your funeral? Embarrassing. Imagine someone bringing up a typo from an email you sent or a PowerPoint. Please do
I
not.
already can't fix my face. I really have to get back to mirror work because the way my face be responding before my mouth, which is also probably not great for people. Um, in all of this, I
Mm,
think after I mean, not after, we're still always in this pandemic, right? Like it's
yeah,
just different levels.
yeah, it's part of our lives now.
Yeah,
It's
panorama.
endemic. Yep.
Miss Covita keeps having kids.
Not Miss
As I
Covina.
keep,
She does. She's a fertile
she's a
bitch.
slut.
La Rona.
Reel it in, girl. All these versions of yourself. But in all of this, I think it's so important. And I think now, since coming out of that, people suddenly care more about mental health.
Mm,
And I think mental health for Black women has really been such a beautiful space to see people like evolving in. Like therapy for Black girls is amazing.
mm-hmm.
There's organizations that help you pay for therapy
Yep.
for being a Black woman because they understand. Again, the most duplicated and the most hated.
Yep.
Like, what has mental health looked like for you? Like, when did you figure out you needed to really tap into that game?
So pretty early on, actually, I
Mhm.
want to say I was in my late teens, early 20s when I started to recognize, and I've always been interested in psychology, to your point, studying psychology since a very early age, and recognizing what can happen when you don't um, prioritize your
Mhm.
well-being, holistic well-being, body, mind, soul. Now it's easier said than done a lot of the
Sure.
times, and you do have to build the habit. So just like working out, just like eating well, you do have to develop a hygiene, a spiritual and mental hygiene routine, and it's very personal that works for you. I I mean, I'm very fortunate to not be clinical in the way that my mental health works. So I have not, knock on wood, been diagnosed with depression or bipolar disorder or mania or anything like that. But being alive is hard.
Yeah.
And when you talk about like your levels of brain chemistry and all the science of it and how so much of that is actually out of our control, I think that's really what it boils down to is like within the black community, at least the ones that I was part of, mental health is not really regarded as like a real thing. It's only very
No, it's that
recently.
white thing. That's
Yeah,
for white people.
correct. But even then, like a lot of times, I actually was just having this conversation with someone. There's so much that people suffer from of all races, of all ethnicities, and it's like, well, you just don't address it, you just ignore it, and then it goes away. But
Mhm.
literally no, it doesn't. And then the problem festers, it boils over. Next thing you know, you're 20 years in to feeling like this way. It's affected your relationship with your partner, it's affected your relationship with your kids if you have them, it's now starting to affect your relationship with your grandkids if you're old enough. And that's literally the definition of generational trauma. So to me, there's a level of personal accountability and responsibility that has to happen before you, with any conversation around mental health. If you cannot acknowledge the problem, and this is like true with any kind of issue really, if you're
Mhm.
dealing with addiction, if you're dealing with, again, mental health issues, if you're dealing with anything, you have to acknowledge that there's a problem first before it can begin to be solved.
Yeah.
I think when you think about the idea of taking care of yourself or taking care of your mental health, again, it's a very personal sort of thing, but a lot of people don't have, I want to say, that inner dialogue or that little voice that tells you like you're unwell, or if they have it, it's very quiet. They're not listening to it. It gets dismissed rather easily in favor of their external environment. And again, this is very scorpionic, but your inner world is so important, I think, when it comes to maintenance and care and increasing your mental health capacity. And a lot of people, they are not resonant within themselves, and it
Mm.
becomes very obvious when you're doing that work, when you interact with people who are just not there. It's like, oh, you're not connected to yourself. You talk about mirror work, you don't spend any time looking at your own fucking eyeballs in the mirror, and that's why you
Very
act like that.
avoidant.
And that's why you act like that, and that's why you'll never ever you're not seeing the gates, you're not seeing the kingdom,
Not the
because you haven't done
gates.
your mirror work.
Not the gates. They check it. Mirror work, none for you.
No,
All right.
sorry, down you go. Yeah.
Imagine, imagine. I think as I, most of my work has been in mental health. I've taken specific breaks. Like
I
there
think
was
the
a,
work that you do is awesome. I think your entire like framing is like, I think it's so cool.
that's wild. Sometimes I think it's cool too. And other times I'm like, you should have baked cakes. Girl,
I just think I'm like, I should have been an accountant. I should have
you
just
should
sucked up
have
the
been.
classwork at the time I was meant to do it and gotten my CPA and called it a fucking day. Yeah.
I do think that because I've seen what it's like to work in mental health as a
Mm,
Black person, as a Black woman, it's really interesting because you also see how Black people are treated so much differently. And
mm.
that fight is different. Like I worked
Can you
at
give an
one place
example?
that
Yeah, like let's hear
I
an
sure
example.
can. I
Yeah.
worked at one mental health facility for teenagers, which truly changed my life. Like
Mm,
I worked there 2 years because I was a 2 years per mental health because I wanted to keep learning.
Yeah.
It truly changed my life. But I would see children who were going through whatever, kids go and just destroy whole rooms.
Yep.
And they be like, it's okay, Steven, we'll get you into session. There was one child who he had a lot of struggles, he had a lot of trauma. He was being raised by his grandmother at this
Mm.
point. She was this sweet Black woman who was just like, I just need help. And most of the staff was Black and brown. We're like, girl, let's how do we help, right?
Yeah.
And her grandson got upset and he grabbed the TV and broke it. Like he threw the TV. Mind you, this TV's been tossed and tussled and broken and replaced by other children.
Yeah.
As soon as he
Mm.
did this, they were like, he's dangerous. We've got to get him out of here. And the way the Black staff rallied and said,
Good.
absolutely not. Did he still get removed? Yes. But he also needed a higher level of care, for
Yeah.
sure. He
Yeah.
did.
But not
But the
because he was Black.
conversation, right, but not suddenly because
Mm.
now he's dangerous when I swear to you, 48 hours before someone else without being Black did the same thing and they got him support and did not move to kick him out. Even the ways that we try to get help in existence,
Mhm.
and let's take it back to the early 2020s, George Floyd.
Yep.
The summer of Black death is what I call it.
It was a summer of Black death. A lot of Black people died.
The way them comments were like, they deserve it. Niggas, Black this, Black that. And then on top of that, when
When there's like
suddenly,
literal video of this man basically
literal,
being assaulted by a police officer.
I went viral
Oh
and
God,
people
that's
were
like my
pissed.
worst fucking nightmare, bitch. I hope I
Oh,
never
but
go
wait,
that hole.
wait, why I went. Because I don't know if you also remember around that time, later in the summer, there was a lot of Black people suddenly being lynched. And
Yeah.
they're like, these are all suicides. And I said,
No, they're not.
absolutely the
Mm-mm.
fuck not. I
Mm-mm.
said, one, that's not how Black people commit suicide. Let's look at the
No.
history.
Yep.
And it's surely not lynching. So I made a post and it was different lynches with people's names. And people are like, how dare you do this? Predominantly white. Why would you say this? These people, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you could be mad if you want. But if you don't want to have a
Why would
real
that make someone
conversation,
upset?
I'm a liar. Because you know what that is? It's pointing back to how racism is still thriving and
Hmm.
active.
Mirror
Again,
work. Mirror
sundown
work.
towns
What
exist.
you were and I know we brought this up a little bit earlier, but I would just love to like just quickly double click on the idea of a sundown town and how it specifically
Yes,
relates
tap tap.
to to mental health and Blackness and how we show up literally in the world. So for anyone who
Can you
doesn't
tell
know,
people what that is? There you
yeah,
go.
for anyone who doesn't know, a sundown town is it's literally a town where you're not supposed to be after sundown if you're Black, and they exist all over the country, they exist all over the world, and the idea of them was that like if you were a Black person that was working in the city limits or working in a certain neighborhood or whatever during the day, you better get your ass back to wherever the fuck you came from by the time the sun went down. Otherwise, there was going to be trouble for you. And that trouble could include anything from a lynching, assault, murder, bodies
Rape.
thrown in lakes, rivers, swamps, etc. And people think that this is like people tend to think that again, oh, that stuff only happens in Mississippi, in Alabama, in Georgia. Burbank, California is the sundown town.
Mhm.
Hawthorne, which is now a predominantly Black and brown city, sundown town. Compton, as in straight outta, used to be a sundown town. Linwood, all of these places. My parents, my dad moved to Los Angeles.
Loma Linda.
Loma Linda still sundown. Loma Linda still Redlands still scares me. So my dad's family moved to Los Angeles from Cologne, Panama, after a couple stopovers in like Texas, I think, in Idaho, in the early '60s, early to mid '60s. So it was right after the Civil Rights Act had just passed, and I lived very close to where I live in West Adams, Los Angeles, and I lived very close to where my dad grew up, just a little bit further south. South LA used to be whites only. Like I'm talking in the hundreds. I'm talking off of Halldale, Western Avenue, Vermont. These north and south. Anyone who lives in LA knows these north and southern boundaries, streets that are now known for like not being great neighborhoods and are being gentrified, re-gentrified, really. But
Yes,
they
the
were walking
circle.
around, yeah, walking around looking for places to live and would see literal whites only signs on the lawn in Compton, California, in Hawthorne, California, in Linwood, where literally there is now a prison. So it's interesting to me the dynamic of denial that you're speaking about.
Mhm.
it's like, well, and talking about things that are racist and talking about racist action and talking about racism is often viewed, I think, by whiteness as worse than actually being racist. As long as you're like, as long as you're like chill about your racism, then like we don't have to really bring it up. But that again, it ties into the ideas of
Yeah.
microaggression, and
Yeah.
not talking about it is what's allowing it to continue. Because if it makes you uncomfortable to think about, your mom being in one of those black and white photos screaming at some
Well,
little
that's
black.
why they don't want to talk about it. Because let's look at him. Is
It wasn't
Uncle
that long
Steve
ago.
in
It wasn't
there?
that long ago.
It wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So it just, and to me, it's like I experience a lot of like terminal frustration with this because I don't think it'll change in our lifetime. Um,
No.
and systemically, we are all so trained to like avoid the landmines that for people like me and maybe you, when you're in these spaces and you're like I've literally been in work meetings and seen content that was being reviewed, assets that are being shown, and been like, who looked at this? That's literally racist. And people like but I'm like, why is it more shocking that I said that this is racist than
The
you?
fact that they'd be shocked is my favorite part. I'm like, are you serious?
But
Am I being
I'm
punked?
like,
Where's Ashton?
so
Is
there
he
was,
back?
so I worked at, it was basically like a startup. I want to say this was like 2013, 2014. So at this point, it's been 10 years. But again, me and one other Black woman in the space. And we were both PR people. So, they were confusing us all day long. And by the way, we look nothing alike. Like we look nothing alike,
Microaggressions.
act nothing alike. When I tell you, I got an email one time from, I think he was on the finance team, and was like, hey, you and I had a meeting last week about XYZ thing. And I just want to follow up and ask you for a little bit more documentation. I said, I'm going to stop you right there. My guess is that you probably had this meeting with this other person. I'm going to loop her in. We're actually two different Black women, but thank you for your note. And people on that chain were like, but I'm like, why is it okay for him to literally confuse me with another Black person and send a note detailing their entire conversation, but I can't point it out?
Because now you're being difficult. You're
You got
being
me fucked up.
mean. You're being a bully. This
And I'll
still
be that.
happens to me.
And I'll be that.
The audacity to be like, oh my God, you look like so and so.
No, I
I have
don't.
been like
No, I
walked over
don't.
and me and her have looked at each other and been like,
Mm-mm.
where? It's because we're black? It's because we both got short hair? There's a lot of people that's black with short
But
hair.
also like, and again, no insult to the woman that I get compared to, because they're
Sure, it's
quite
just not
often,
you.
yeah, exactly. It's like, take the extra 6 seconds. I actually saw a study that basically said that white people can't tell Black people apart. Like there's something in their brain that does not allow them to process when Black people don't look like other Black
So people
people.
gonna see this and be like, which one is Jimanekia? Which one's Sarissa in this? I don't know. It's so ridiculous that, it's an everyday life navigation.
Mhm.
Then when you just try to make money because we like nice things
Yeah,
and the
I
things
got
you've
bills to
studied
pay.
for, you got bills to pay, and I like nice things.
Yeah.
Um, like, what has it looked like for you to not leave these spaces? Like, how
Mm.
have you maintained your mental health? How have you maintained your livelihood outside of work? How have you maintained your relationships to allow you to exist in these spaces that, again, essentially weren't built for us? They just had to let us in because we're baddies and we just
Yeah.
know a lot.
Yeah. Listen, it is what it is. I didn't make the rules, okay? You guys did. Um, it's
Sure.
actually, I love this question because it's a process and it's a journey. And I think things have changed a little bit. Like even in my lifetime, they've changed. A lot of the jobs that I've had throughout the course of my career did not exist when I was graduating from college. Like they just like I've literally had to be at the tip of the spear again, first and only. I don't want to do that anymore. But because even within the last again 20 years of a career, you have people who are like, oh, if you can do it, then I see that modeled. There is something that is gratifying and fortifying about that because I didn't have that example necessarily. Like walking into these spaces, I go out of my way and make it a point to have those interactions again, in particular with younger Black women. I have a mentee that I've been working with since 2020.
Hmm.
And, when I met her, she was 26, 27 years old. Now she's a woman in her 30s. And she's like, when you said XYZ all that time ago, I'm realizing like, oh, this is what that looks like. Because I
Yeah.
think again, if you never had the example, and even if you went to the right schools and you did all these things and you've had experience navigating these spaces, each environment that you're in is going to be a different sort of experience. So when I think about, the question through the lens of, okay, so I'm in the space now and I'm having to learn how to navigate it and duck and dodge accordingly. How do I how do I show up comprehensively? How do I not let this consume me? And to go
Yeah.
back to the conversation around mental health, personally, like I work out and I have an incredible group of friends. I have an incredible community that I've cultivated over many, many years. Um, I age again, getting older, recognizing like when something is not worth your time, when something cannot be helped, and being able to release it gracefully is
Mhm.
a big thing that I think therapy helps with. To kind of close the loop on the conversation I was having with my therapist earlier, she was talking about this again. We were talking about this idea of perfection and being able to show up uh, and make mistakes effectively. And she was telling me about a book she read by Stephen Hawking. I can't remember the name of it, but she basically said that this book, and when she talks about the universe and physics and all this stuff, and evolutionary theory, and how like without essentially an error in the chain link, you don't get evolution. If everything is working as exactly as it should, if you're maintaining the status quo, then you never get to evolve. So without these experiences that I've had that do not feel
Mm.
good,
Yeah.
feel bad at the time, feel like setbacks, etc., um, we would not be learning the lessons that we're learning. And I think again, very scorpionic, but I think that is an essential part of this existence. Um, Generosity and gratitude are huge parts. Believe it or not, I give freely. It's something that I enjoy doing. I love being of service. Um, but
Believe it or not.
but the asterisk on that, I mean, the context that you and I met, like that, I think about that night often. And at this point, it was years ago, and all the people that I've met and come across from that night have remarked to me that that experience was so unusual. It's so rare that you get to be in a space like that with people like that. And what's understood does not need to be explained. And
Yeah.
wherever I show up, I try to make that the default vibration. Like, I understand you, I see you, so you do not have to explain yourself to me unless you feel compelled to, unless you have something that you want to share. I think showing up again with that generosity and that gratitude, it's a flywheel. So the more grateful I am for everything that happens to and with and by and for me, good and bad, the more I will receive goodness and abundance and growth, etc., which are all things that I'm actively seeking in my life. The other thing is that just fundamentally and functionally, um, I think the meaning of life is to live it. So you have to kind of
Mm.
approach things with both hands open and a level of enthusiasm and gusto, which looks different for everybody, that you wake up, you face the day, and you're going to get through it. And again, I think that's a big part of mental health too, because sometimes when you're in those valleys, you do want to give up. You're like, what if I just laid here until the Lord comes and gets me?
Whisper something nice to me. Like something. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think all those things are important. And then again, like functionally, like of course I like a good massage. I like, I take good care of my skin, and like I make
I
sure
take care of
that
my skin too.
yeah,
Thank you.
your
It's
skin looks
also part of you.
yeah, I mean, you're
Use my
glowing right
soap this
now.
morning.
I see the glow. But all those things are important. But I think sometimes we get stuck on like, oh, I need a massage, or I need a self care day, or I need to take a bubble bath, or I need, or I need to work out, etc. All of those things are part of it. But again, the real work comes in when you're able to sort of integrate those things and internalize the feeling that they give you. Also, again, I advocate for therapy. Finding the right therapist is key.
That part.
But anytime that you can talk to in theory, objective third party, your friends are not your therapist. Stop asking your friends for advice, literally. Like, unless it's like a one off thing and you're just like looking for confirmation of your own ideas or perhaps a slightly different perspective. No, your girlfriends don't care about your man. Don't take it if you've been with your husband for 20 years like I have. Why are you taking advice from your single girlfriends or vice versa? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
look at people who have what you want or have been trained to look at your situation and talk to them. Stop asking broke bitches for advice if you are trying to get money.
Clearly, they don't know. They
They
also need
don't they
help.
don't know. And like that's not to disrespect a broke bitch, cuz listen, broke bitches have their place too. But why would I ask a broke bitch if I want to get money? She doesn't know. And that's no diss to her. Like if you want to get
Yeah,
money, talk to a bitch who's got money.
that's fair.
You might
If
learn
you
something.
could, if you could give tips to like young Black women that
Mm,
are navigating new workspaces, that like got their dream job and now they're like there's
yeah.
a whole movie on Hulu
Mhm.
about a black, I gotta watch it. It's like a Black woman that's in an
Did it just
office
come
and a
out?
new Black woman comes in. Yeah, I think it came out like the end of
Oh, is it's
2023.
the horror movie. It's a horror
Yes.
movie. The Other Black Girl, right? Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, I need to watch that.
I
But
feel
like
I feel
if
like it
you
might be
could,
triggering, honestly.
honestly, okay, well, we're gonna stay positive here. Look
Yes,
at
yes, yes.
us.
Okay, okay, okay.
If you could give any young Black woman like a tip as they're finding their dream job, getting in the spaces, and or just going to a job where they deserve it, but there's people there that make them feel like they don't.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah. I think the standard advice for these kinds of things is so interesting because it's like you deserve it. You earned your spot there, and like yeah, all that.
It's not
Yeah,
really
sure,
advice though.
sure. It's not, and
It's
also
like
like,
live, laugh, love.
but it's hard to internalize that when you don't have that feeling. It's hard to like imagine feeling like you deserve something when you literally nothing in the environment indicates that.
Doesn't
You're,
want you there.
Here's what I'll
Yeah,
say is, and this is, I'm caveating this, I'm putting an asterisk on it. The way that I live my life is not for everyone. You really do have to be willing to take the dubs and the L's in the
yeah.
same with stride. The more I've been able to stand up for myself in these environments,
Yeah.
the better my experience has gotten. And sometimes that means needing to leave the environment.
Yeah.
I would never at this stage in my life prioritize um the function of work, meaning like the status, the title, the identity that I associate with whatever space I'm in, over feeling good about being in it. So if
Mhm.
every day I'm in this space and it makes me feel like I want to die,
Gotta go.
I gotta
I'm out.
go. I gotta cut it loose. Um, if someone talks crazy to you, it is a human right. And again, I this again controversial. Rules are fake. They're made up. Who said that I have to do anything you tell me to do? The idea of like, no, but for real though, like
Said who?
like the idea of like people getting in trouble for something. And again, like obviously there are laws, like you shouldn't still lie, kill objectively. I think there's exceptions to every rule, but let's just say that those are the table stakes. But when someone's like,
Okay.
oh, I don't want someone to be mad at me, I don't want to get in trouble, fuck that. You know what I mean? Like you can get mad and we can fight about it and then we can move on. Like everyone in here is a grown up, is an adult. The amount of overt conflict I've had in workplaces, again, I cannot in good conscience recommend this necessarily to everyone. But what I'm saying is if you
It's
find
about to
yourself
go
in a
left.
situation where, well, like if you find yourself in situations where like your autonomy is being stepped on, you're being mistreated on a fundamentally human level, first of all, document it and snitch. Get yourself a lawyer and snitch because those settlements are no joke, girl. You get the right
You
one.
know what? Can we pause real quick because
Yeah,
I think
100%.
because
And I hate
we
snitches,
live
by the way, but there's some context when it's necessary.
but we live in LA and we are we will sue you happy kind
A
of
hundred
place.
percent. 100%.
And I want Black women to know, as
Take it
I
to
know,
court.
documentation works.
Take it to court.
Because because I did have to get some lady fired because she
Yeah.
tried me
Yeah.
and I documented everything. They were like, "Oh my God, we've never nah," because she's not about to go and make it up like I'm
Correct.
Delulu.
Correct.
So document. That's just what
Correct.
I just want people to document.
You have a fucked up conversation with someone. They want to talk to you in text. They want to talk to you async.
Screenshot, screenshot, save, save, save.
Screenshot. Send an email. Be like, per our conversation. Open up a Google Doc. Write the date. Write the subject. Document bullet points. Keep it short and sweet. Factual only. You
Mhm.
might save your life. You might make some money off of it. So there's that part. But there's also the part where it's like again, and this is, some of this is just endemic to me, some of it's just my personality, but I had a boss in my, one of my very early jobs. I was working at an agency, and he was a white gay man, and he just was kind of like a dick. Like, it was like, and that was like the era of like, if you worked at a talent agency, your boss was throwing staplers at you. Like, it was giving Devil Wears Prada, but for no reason,
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he would come for me quite a bit, like,
Mm.
because the other thing is like when you
Duplicated and hated.
but again, but and I think when you show up with your whole chest, people, there's like just an instinct to like try to, I have to break her down. I have to like they're breaking a buck or something. But he had no
Yeah.
idea who he was
Ooh.
dealing. Yeah, he had no idea what he was doing.
Yeah.
So there was one instance where I wrote a newsletter, like I drafted a newsletter for one of our clients, and he gave me feedback that the newsletter was bizarre and upsetting. Like he's like, he called my
Good
writing, and you
feedback.
know what? He might have been right. He said this is bizarre and upsetting. You were thinking about it. I'm like, why would you say that? Just give me the edits and let's keep it moving. Anyway, I replied back and I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe you talk to people like this. And I'll do it one on one, and I will do it in the email chain. The same way I was like, listen, I think you've mistaken me for the other Black woman that works here. There's really only two of us, so you should be able to tell us apart. But sometimes people are afraid to like say things in front of an audience. I guess the long and short of what I'm saying is that you need to sack up. Like, don't be
Mm,
afraid to use your voice. You're not going to go to
mhm,
jail for doing it. You're not, well, you might because you're Black, but it won't be because you did it. It'll be because life is unfair. But you have to be brave enough and love yourself enough to stand up for yourself. And in doing that, again, you set an example for others who are in the space. I can't even tell you how many times people are like, wow, I really chicken shit, because like if you saw some fucked up shit happening and you didn't say anything about it, I see you. But you being empowered, again, lifts the tide. It empowers the whole environment. And
mhm,
as I said, we made this up. You don't have to stay in places that make you feel like shit. You might need to find
yeah.
another job first, but let them know. In the meantime, while I'm still here, we're going to regard each other with a basic level of human decency and respect. And there's really no other option. I'm not going to
Mm,
tolerate it. And you can do that in ways that are professional and straightforward and kind, and using language that doesn't have cuss words in it or whatever it is. I'm excellent at doing that. But I also need to let people know that I'm not the one, the two, or the three.
mhm, mm. Delivery. Ooh, I knew this was gonna be a good time. I just knew my morning. This, listen, a 9 a.m. call time
We showed
is
up today. We were on.
magical. Just magical. It's how you start the day with my protein shake.
Exactly.
Um, so I have one last question that I
Yeah.
ask all my guests, and truly it's because I'm nosy and I want to see what's happening. What is the wildest thing in the last 2 weeks
Oh
that
gosh.
someone has either texted or
What have I
DM'd
done?
you?
Oh
And
my god.
you can define wild. We've
Okay, I
had
was like, because
some
my question was, how are we
fun
deciding what?
answers, whatever. Everyone has had different answers, and I'd love all of them.
So my friends and I, we do a lot of exploration and discussion around pop culture. Um,
Uh-oh. It's a lot happening right now. I'm like, what is
that's
it?
what I'm like, what do you mean? What, like, does that have to be personal? I just think
Whatever
like,
you want.
I mean, so again, we're recording this during Black History Month. Drake's he released a
No,
video. I'm not
I
going to
don't
get
want to do
into it.
this.
Yes.
I'm already out. That somebody sent me the churro where someone's holding a churro and swinging them.
Oh no! I just, so that comes up, and we suspect that he leaked it himself because there's no way.
Absolutely.
How does that get it?
Absolutely.
He was in the room alone. I don't. Who did you send that to? It's giving me agita. That's pretty wild. And then just like everyone's going through something right now.
Yeah.
I think,
We got an
and
it's an election year. Ugh.
yeah, people are experiencing. There's like a, I think the illusion has been fractured. The illusion has been
Ooh.
shattered. We're looking
Okay,
at
boo.
celebrity in different ways. We're looking at, the Grammys just happened. People are like, what the fuck was that? And I think when we think about like wild, it's like, oh, that's unbelievable. But something unbelievable happens every single day.
Mhm.
And I'm a pretty hard person to shock, but it's really just, I think it's just a sign of the time. So, really, my question or my statement would be, if you're not getting something, at least once a week, that's wild, whether it's in a personal life where it's like, I can't believe this bitch said this thing to me. Also, my life on purpose is kind of boring. So my friends and I are all very normal, but like I have a girlfriend that like her sister-in-law, and just for context, this is a brown family, they're not white. She married into, well, not fully white, I think maybe dad is white, but basically my friend is married to the brother of uh this man who married a white woman, and she's pregnant right now, and she uh essentially is at war with her mother-in-law, with their mother-in-law, and they live in a different state, and they drove like some baby stuff over because she's due pretty soon, I think. But she basically was like calling her mother-in-law petty and telling her that she didn't want to deal with her like shit, and just like cussing out this woman who has basically gone above and beyond to kind of make this experience the first grandbaby. So everyone's like real excited. And to me, that's wild, because how do you marry into a family and then proceed to cuss them out? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you?
Wouldn't be my family. Okay, let me tell you,
That's what I
the
like.
drag.
So, like, in terms of the definition of wild, something wild happens
Yeah.
for me on an almost daily basis. But I would have to say my number one thing is Drake's leaked nude, because I actually can't believe that he wasn't too ashamed to do that. To me, that's wild. It's wild that he lacked the level of shame that should have been present to have that appear on the internet.
I blame Megan talking about BBLs. I think that was a response. He didn't have time to make a rap. He said, "I got
Really,
something for you."
honestly, Nicki Minaj and her fans. I mean, again, I could go on
That's
all day.
also wild.
She
She let her fans write that song.
It's really just, again, I think been a fracture in the matrix, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. But
Oh,
worse is like, again, worse doesn't, worse objectively means bad, but like it doesn't mean it's going to get worse for you. It's just going to get more wild, essentially. Like, it's going to get more shocking before it gets less shocking, I think. We'll see how it
and I
goes.
think I think that's where we end it. Buckle up, everyone. Sarissa has predicted that it's about to get wild. You lucky she didn't pull out no cards and shit and
You
start
are lucky.
reading
Actually,
y'all.
should we do, before we go, should we do a little tarot pull?
Oh my god, duh,
Hold on.
duh.
Wait, not duh. Not duh.
Absolutely.
I
Oh my
always
god,
have a
I'm so glad you asked.
I always have a deck handy. I always have a deck nearby. We've
Just in case
already
you need to read somebody.
listen or check the vibes. We've um we've already had the conversation. A lot of times before I start these conversations, I like to pull a card just to kind of see what the thematic is. Oh, Ace of Cups reverse. So Ace energy is enthusiastic. It's a little aggressive. It's it's like warrior energy, like young soldier energy, like battlefield energy. Ace of Cups, Cups is a water suit. So basically we're being I think maybe the negative purview of this is emotionally aggressive, but the positive is
That's right.
emotionally honest, emotionally raw, emotionally straightforward,
I'll receive that for us.
which is fitting because the literal name of the podcast is Trauma Queen. So Ace of
And
Cups, let's talk about it.
mm, this was so fun.
I'm glad.
This was
Thank you
I
for having me
knew.
on. This is
This
great.
is what I knew was gonna be. Okay, last. If you want, where can the girls, Nims, theys, hims
Oh
find you? You
god.
don't have to. You can say nowhere. I don't care.
I am You can Google me to a certain extent. Um my Instagram is R to the Issa. That's uh a modification on a J. I was a big Jay-Z fan when the internet first started back in the day, and I just never changed the name. I probably should have. I probably should change my name. Actually, I was going to give my LinkedIn, but don't look for me on LinkedIn. You
Not
can probably find
LinkedIn.
me.
That's how you know you're a grown up.
Yeah, I was like, don't look for me on LinkedIn. Instagram is fine. R to the Issa.
I can't get you a job. Don't look at my
I
LinkedIn.
can't help you. Do not message me. I don't. I
Uh,
can't do it. I can't do it.
yeah. I just hope y'all all take some gems from this. And like I always say, take what feels good for you, leave the rest. But also, you're welcome.
You are welcome. Congratulations.